What's going on, everybody? We're back at it with another episode of Hangout. So we have the ancient, the old, their grandfather of time. Of course, we're talking about Hashim. Hashim, what's up, buddy? How you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on, man? Everything all right? We all good?
Yeah. And on the other side, we're gonna have another guest in a minute when I get his stuff all set up. So Hashim, how's everything going on with you, man? It's been a hot minute before you've been on here.
I'm trying to tell you, you're dealing with little issues here and there, but you know what? We're gonna forget about all that tonight, and we're gonna have a good time and just talk and
Absolutely.
try to USA.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna do.
So the next person we get in here, we gotta talk about the president of the Seven Bs, my brother from over in the dirty Jersey side. Of course, we're talking about Paul. Paul, what's going on, my man?
How you doing, Ashim? Good to see you.
All right, good to see you too, Paul.
So before we get into it, let's go around. Let's see how you guys doing this week. Hashim, you already went. How's except with the little stuff else, how's everything else? Are you good? You ready to? How's your digital gaming sense? Ready to hit that shit?
Oh man, I mean, if we're gonna talk about some old one, I may have some good answers. I remember some good oldie but goodies.
Well, it is the reason when I call you, the old man. You're older than time, so don't forget that.
I think you're a little older than me.
Hey! Don't fuck with my gray hairs, all right? Because I'm gonna start being go to spar all over your fucking ass in 2 seconds here. Paul, my man, how's everything on your side, brother?
Yo, everything's all right. Everything's all right. I just had to, had to man up and take care of some stuff with the fam. Mom, my daughters, everyone's. Especially when you got daughters, everything's a crisis. So you have to kind of level set them and let them know, hey, perspective. You got to give them that sometimes. So I got to make sure that's good. But other than that, I'm pretty good. I was kind of tired. A couple of weeks ago, I had like flu-like symptoms. I didn't have COVID or anything, but I was really sick. So I worked out there just to kind of get through it. But today was like I really went like all out for the first time in like 3 weeks. And I'm already starting to feel it already. It's one of the reasons I don't like taking time off from working out because you get sore and you get fatigued and everything. So I got to build my stamina back up. But whatever I had, whatever bug I had, it took like half my strength was just gone. And now I'm starting to feel it like it's coming back. But I'm like, man, I'm still probably about 2 weeks away before really getting back to where I was before I got sick. So I'm just trying to recover, from that. So I know tomorrow, daytime, I'm just going to chill, just get some more rest and just try to be better for next time. But
See,
I felt good today trying to.
I was always a big fan of getting sore. I always loved it. I mean, Hisham had this conversation when we used to work together. Like, I know I'm one of the weird ones. Like, if I'm not sore the next day, I did not work hard enough at the gym, and that's my theory. It means I got to push myself 10 times harder the next time. Like, I'm not saying to the point that you can't walk. I mean, at least, okay, oh yeah, that feels good. You know what I'm saying?
It could hurt.
Yeah, soreness just usually for me it just comes from inactivity more so. Like I get fatigued, so there's like the difference between fatigue and sore. It's like when you're sore, it's like it's hard to move. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah. So
every step you take, especially on leg day or whatever, every day gets like really tough. But fatigue is just like it's like a general body kind of thing. It's like the whole body hurts.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Just trying to recover from that. But acute soreness, if I'm working out regularly, I don't get sore.
Yeah, I know if you caught the streams last week on Wednesday with Nick. Nick is very, very knowledgeable, like yourself, about working out and stuff like that. He's a big fan of doing full bodies, like doing 1 day full body, one off, rotated like that. Is more, I guess, more able to do it because of work life pretty much. And in a way, he's right about that. I took time and I thought about that. Like he's right because if you miss 1 day, you're not into the world because you can, you the way he has it set up, if that makes sense.
Well, here's the thing with me. See, I have a very specialized training I use hit training, high intensity training. So
Mm-hmm.
that's like Arthur Jones and Mike Minzer type of training.
Okay.
So for me, training is very infrequent. I only train twice a week, and
Mm.
sometimes I could do once a week. And they're also very brief. Most of my sessions, like today, is like upper body day is 45 minutes, leg day is about 30. And but it's got to be very intense. Everything's to failure. So it's like for me, what I've learned just being in my 50s now, the growth for me happens in rest, not the workout. So the workout is just going to be the stimulus for getting things going. But I gotta rest. I'm not a young man anymore where I can just keep hitting.
Obviously. Yeah.
So I rest for me is like where the growth and the strength and all that happens. And I know that I'm recovering because the next workout, the goal is always to do more than last time. So if I got 7 reps on an exercise last time, the goal is to get 8 this time, and
Yeah.
or more. And so training to failure is also a mindset because a lot of times it's like you get to like the 6th or 7th rep, or it's like, okay, that's a
Mm.
good set, but no, I got to go until I can't do it no more. So
Yeah.
it's very limited. But I used to train 5 6 days a week. I mean, that was like hour and a half a day. 4 days on, day off, and that sort of thing. But
Mm.
as I got older, I just stopped. I just stopped seeing the progress. So for me, it's like I had to slow it. I kind of had to slow it down a little bit and give myself more recovery days than
Yeah. No,
so.
I totally get it because even with my work, I got me and Hisham have crazy work schedules because we're both chefs. He has his side
Mhm.
gig on top of that family. I can't make it every day sometimes. It's hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So to your point, as far as like missing, like if I miss a day, that's a week. So it's
Yeah.
so that's the difference for me. So it's like and if I miss 2 weeks, then it's almost like there's always like a sweet spot because people, because I also train people as well. So I noticed there's a sweet spot. Some people like 6 to 7 days is like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Anything before 6 days, they're not recovered. Anything after 7 days, they start to go the other way. So for some guys, I got a dial. I had this one client who was very specific. Like if I didn't train him on the 6th or 7th day, it was almost like you weren't going to get the result. So his peak was 7 days, and then he started going downhill in terms of his strength gains and whatnot. So
Yeah. Yeah.
where it's like
Mm.
all this work you put in, but it'd be nice if you could whatever you earned, you keep, right? And but unfortunately, the body doesn't work. Body doesn't work that way. So you can work out for a whole year, and take a few weeks off if you're sick or injured or something like that. And it's almost like you feel like you're starting over again. Muscle memory is an
Exactly.
important thing,
Yeah.
but
Dude,
sometimes
trust
you just
me,
don't feel like, yeah,
I get it
that's what
because
sucks. That's what, yeah.
with muscle
I'm
memory,
so
I'm a big fan
fanatical
of
about
that.
it. Yeah,
I'm a big fan.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
let me ask you both gentlemen a question. I know she's quite answer already. I know because
Sure.
it's a instant time. What's the last system you remember that you sat in front of it like, holy shit, this was fucking fun. Like you could not put the controller down.
You said like gaming systems.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I might be the odd man out on this discussion. Again, let me just to get explain a little bit about my background. Bottom line is this: the last gaming system that I owned was an Atari 5200 back in 1983.
Ooh, Lord have
Last
mercy.
one I owned. Now I played other gaming systems because I had friends who had
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo NES and they had Sega Genesis or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. I was always at somebody's house or someone's dorm room or whatever playing that. But as far as buying one, it was almost like I didn't have to because everybody else had a system, and I was like, I didn't necessarily have to invest in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so since then, the last gaming system that I actually played, like, was probably an um, Xbox 360 or something like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
But honestly, my gaming these days, yeah, is most of my gaming is either going to be on my phone. So I have like, but even the games there, they're like shoot 'em up at. I'm kind of weird in that for a long time, most of my game, I'm kind of like a retro guy.
Mm.
So most of my gaming, there's this gaming platform for Windows. It's called Main, and with Main, it literally it has it's a game engine, and you can get these ROMs of the actual arcade game. So me, I was a big game head back in the 80s. The art when you used to go to the arcades to play
With the
video games,
quarters.
and so I never left that. So I will go to, so I'll run that, and the gaming, the sound, everything is exactly the same. It's not an emulation. Well, it is an emulation, but the ROMs are almost identical to the actual game versions of it.
Okay,
And
that's
so
pretty cool. Actually, I like
for
that.
years, I would just play those classic video games. And my top probably 5 video games of all time is Galaga.
Oh,
That's
that's my
probably my
first.
favorite game of all time. Shinobi. You guys
Ooh.
remember Shinobi from the
Uh huh.
70s?
I
Doing this.
remember, like, your age is showing, Paul. Your age is showing.
Yeah. Contra. Y'all
Ooh,
remember
Contra.
Contra?
Yes.
Star Wars, the Vectrex game.
Uh huh.
And then that you had Tempest, and then you also had Centipede. So those are like my 5, like, all time games I used to play. And the goal of the game was simply just to get the highest score or get to the
Mm-hmm.
latest level.
Hmm.
But if you could get to like the high point of the game, so again, you put your coins in and play, right? And so when you left the game, you were number one, had the top score. You put your
Mm-hmm.
initials into the game, so PTB went on top. Then that's when I felt like I could leave. At that point, I also have some classic games from like NES and whatnot that again I played over the years but again, I found emulators for NES, so a lot of those games I would play, or Sega Genesis, some emulators there as well. So really, honestly, up to like Sega Genesis was my, you know, that was like the height. And then everything else that yeah, an Xbox but I didn't play Sega Master System. My kids, they had a Wii growing. They had a Wii for like, for 10 years. They had a Wii system.
Damn.
But I didn't play a lot of games on the Wii because they like to play like the tennis and the
Yeah.
Mario Kart games and stuff like that. I just didn't have an interest in that. But by and large, a lot of stuff on my phone, a lot of puzzle games and stuff like that. But I'm really not a serious, hardcore gamer. Got the headset on and I'm playing guys in Europe, and I'm just not that guy for that. So I can certainly give you a historical perspective from the 80s or the 70s and 80s
Oh, we're
about
gonna get in
gaming,
that. Don't
but
worry. Don't
anything
worry.
modern, I'm not there. But I remember that
Yeah.
period
Okay.
very well because, like I said, I was
So,
hardcore then.
so
Do you remember?
before we get to the YouTube, hang on one second. So, my history of gaming is similar. I'm a gamer. I play. I buy systems, but I'm not those guy who has a headset on, playing in with hoodie with a Mountain Dew on the side with Cheetos. I'm not a big fan of lamb. We're gonna talk about that too, but before
Hmm.
we get into that, I want to get Hashim's perspective. What? No, I'm asking a big question here. I hope you took your medication today, Hashim. What
Here
do
we
you?
go.
What do you remember as gaming? And I'm gonna go after that. I'm gonna throw the first topic out, and we'll go from there. Let's go. Go ahead, Hashim. The table is yours.
What do I remember? I'm going
Good
back
luck.
like him with the Atari. I had an Atari. My brother. Do you remember ColecoVision? The
Absolutely.
one with the one little
That
handheld with the knob
that
on
was
it, and
that,
all it
that,
was with
that
the
that's right. That's right.
ColecoVision.
So
Oh
is that
my!
going to be one of your early questions, Pete? Because that was, like I said, that was
Oh, I have
that
a
was the
lot.
era. You
I
had
have
three. You had
so
Atari
right now,
2600.
Uh huh.
Yep.
right
You
now
got
as we speaking,
ColecoVision
I
and
have. I'm sorry. Go
Intellivision,
ahead, Paul. I apologize. Go ahead.
and you also had Intellivision. That was another
In
one that
television, that was another one. Yeah.
consoles plays with.
Okay.
Let me hit you
That's
with
right.
this.
Yeah.
Do you remember a little handheld game? It was a handheld. It was like brown. I think it had a knob, but Blockbuster, I think it was called. And all you had to do was the blocks come down. It was like a little handheld. It was around that time of Atari.
I
And
don't remember that one in particular, but I did have all the Mattel games. So
I,
remember the Mattel sports,
the
Mattel
football,
football,
the
Mattel
basketball,
basketball, Mattel
yes.
baseball. I had
Hmm.
all of that. So
Where it
so
was
yeah,
just a little
a
blip on
little
the
red
line,
dot.
the little red dot. That's all it was. The
So
football one was real
before we
good.
get into the
That was
first
our
topic,
Game Boy.
guys, I want to shout out to Stacy, our I guess the unofficial cheerleader at this point because she's always the first one to say hi. And I'd like to welcome Mariana in the groups today. So welcome, guys. So the first topic I want to go into, and I'm gonna
Good
let you
evening.
guys go ahead on this one. Pawn released in 1972. You were probably what, like 50 Hashim back then? Uh, it,
I wasn't born.
it is wide release as a gaming. The Kickstarter arcade gaming revolution developed by Atari. Pawn was simple table turning gaming strategy that became an instant hit and played competition national wide at one point back in the 70s. So we were talking about even professional gaming started back in the 70s. To be honest, when I read this article, we're like, what the fuck? Really? I think competition gaming started in early 2000s, to be honest with Call of Duty and all that stuff.
No.
But I'm wrong. So please, the floor is yours, Paul. I think you have something to say already. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. To that point, in early '70s. Now, I own. This is probably the first gaming console I ever owned.
Mm-hmm.
Officially, was I had a Telestar
Okay.
gaming platform, and it was basically Pong and squash. The only difference between Pong and squash is like Pong was like a four-player. I mean, Pong was like a two-player, and the squash is like a four-player. But
Okay.
it was literally just two bars going up and down, and the ball going.
Yep, I remember playing that
back and
actually.
forth with each other, and that was it. So but the big thing was, certainly the arcades was the hangout. So as a kid, you look forward to going you either went to the bowling alley,
Or the
you
mall.
went to the mall, or you actually had, or the local corner
Store.
store or cigarette shop or whatever. They would have gaming consoles in there, and you just played. So you had Centipede, Pac-Man,
Space Invaders.
Asteroids,
Frogger, right?
Missile
Frog.
Command, all those things. So really, at that time, certainly home gaming really wasn't a thing. It just, so the arcade was what you look forward to. You got your allowance and you traded it in for some quarters, and you went to the arcade, and you just hung out there. If you went, but I really liked the bowling alley, because again, my family would go to the bowling alley, and while they're bowling, I would play. I would maybe like play like one frame or whatever in the bowling, and I would go to the arcade and I would play the arcade games there at the time. So that was just like a really immersive experience, and especially at the time, I can't say enough about as much of the technology that we have today. At the time, like, what was cool about growing up to be a Gen Xer was that everything that came out, it was so new that you didn't know that you didn't know. You know what I'm saying? It was like today everything's 4K and all this kind of stuff. But again, like I said, the game with the red dot on it, you thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then when they were able to have digital voice and digital sound effects, you thought that was cool, and whatnot. So so at the time, that was the thing with the arcades. Now, my first, say, major gaming system, because I remember that Telstar system, that was was novel, but you got tired because you're only playing, like I said, squash or pong or whatever.
Yeah.
The first one I owned was actually, I didn't even own an Atari 2600. Radio Shack. If you guys remember the Radio Shack stores.
Oh God,
they had like their own clone version of it, like a Tandy version, but it was an exact clone of the 2600, and it played all of the Atari 2600 games. And so that was the first one that I got it as a Christmas present. My mom bought it for me, and that was the first one that I owned. And then there you had, the early games, the early sports games, the Asteroids, the Missile Command Defender, all those early Atari games, Pitfall, Pitfall 2, all those games you had in that space. So you're talking, this is 1980, 82, 83. It's like maybe like Christmas 82, early 83, when I got the Atari, the Atari knockoff. And then in 83, so at the time you had Mattel. They came out with Intellivision that had better graphics than the Atari 2600, but their gaming category wasn't as expansive. Like, the thing that really took off with the Atari system was the number of games that they had available to you. So you never got bored because you could always buy new games. Television, they had a smaller set, but the quality of the graphics at the time was better.
Yeah.
And then ColecoVision came out. And when ColecoVision came, their library was also very big as well. So you had three major gaming platforms at the time, and then in 83, 84, Atari 5200 came out. And that you thought was the greatest thing ever because, like I said, one of my favorite early games was Centipede.
Yeah.
And Centipede, what was unique about the game was you had the trackball on the arcade game. Well, Atari 5200, they actually had a trackball attachment that you can hook up to the to the main gaming console. So you're literally playing 5200 at home. The sound sounded identical to the game, and you're playing it at home. So again, 5200 was like like a major thing that was up there. So I think Coleco and 5200, they were kind of going back and forth in terms of titles. So I think in terms of rivals, it was the Atari 2600 and television. They were like the first head-to-heads that were going back and forth. Then you had the
Okay, okay.
Atari 5200 and the
Yeah.
ColecoVision that were going head-to-head.
So I'm gonna
So
cut you
those
off one
guys were,
second,
yeah,
and this is gonna you're gonna blow your mind off. I actually remember playing the Ataris, different kind, because it was when Atari was coming out in Greece, the Super Nintendo and Nintendo was getting very popular over here, but a lot
right,
of people couldn't afford a Super Nintendo in Greece, so they got the Atari that cost probably not even half the money at that time.
correct,
I
yeah,
remember playing, going doing doing doing, like I
yeah,
thought, wow, this
Hmm.
is cool as a kid. Then when
right,
I got, when I came to the States, like, this is cool now.
yeah.
So I
Like I said, you
experienced
don't know
that.
what you don't know. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
know what you
Exactly.
don't know, and
So
that
Yeah.
that
was the
was,
thing. So
yeah.
in those days, ignorance was bliss.
In a
In
good
terms
way.
of your just enjoy it, right? To
Hmm.
enjoy what you had or what you were playing with, and like I said, guys, that's the thing. Guys had, if everyone on your block had like an Atari, then you would just trade games. So it's like here, here, let me loan Defender, and here's Pac-Man or whatever, and we'll trade, we'll swap games back and forth. So you didn't think that you had to have like dozens or hundreds of games that you had to buy. You just traded with the guys around the block, whatever, and you just kind of had like on a buddy system. You just kind of shared content. But something happened in 1983, 83, 84. There was a home gaming system crash. So mind you, you had that, and then you still also had the abundance of arcade games. Because, like I said, in
Mm-hmm.
the early 80s, 82, 83, 84, Star Wars came out, which
Hmm.
was a vector graph. You also had another a small system, was a system called Vectrex, and it was like a tabletop 9-inch kind of screen, but they had vector graphics on it, and
Let
that
me
was
ask you guys
also
a question before we move on to this, because I'm just
yeah,
curious, because I couldn't really find the right answer, because I got all over the place with this one. Arcade, what did it cost back then?
Quarter.
a quarter. Well, right. I would say early on, I'd say up until about 83, it really depended on the game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they started out as a quarter. I'd say by about 84, 85, you started seeing 50-cent
50
games.
cent. Yeah.
So that was like, like especially because Star Wars had two types of consoles. You had the upright one, but then you had the one where you actually went into it. It was like it was made
Like
like
you
it
sit
was
in it.
actually, yeah, like a cockpit that you sat in. Those were 50 cents, or sometimes even 75 cents
Okay,
if
okay.
you wanted to play those. And obviously for the business, they wanted to charge as much as possible. Like the local
Obviously.
guy at the corner, he didn't care. He'd be like, oh yeah, quarter of his game. But if you're at the bowling alley or the mall or the arcade or whatever, if they want to make more money, they just set it up, where they say, okay, no, if you want to play one game, it's 50 cents. It used to be 50 cents if it was the two. One player was 25 cents and two players
Hmm.
was 50 cents. And then it got to a point where it was 50 cents and a dollar because they said, hey, we're making money here. So,
Mm-hmm.
let's keep doing this. But the arcade market blew up in 82, 83, 84.
Oh God, yeah.
84, you actually had the first Laserdisc game. Dragon's Lair came out.
Yeah.
And that was a major thing because it was really using like real animation. Somehow they were able to get the animation that was on the Laserdisc to respond to the controls and movement. So it
Hmm.
didn't like little stick figures on the screen or whatever. It was like real stuff. So that market really blew up. Now that came at the expense of the home market because initially people were, happy about the convenience of being able to play games at home and keep all that kind of stuff. But the problem was the home gaming market at the time the quality difference between the arcade games and the home games, it split like this. And the fact that you had so many gaming manufacturers, like I said, for 2600 and for Coleco and all this, you had so many games, and a lot of the games were crap. That's another thing. Also, there was no preview. You
Yeah.
would go, you would buy a game. If you liked it, great. If you didn't, it was like, oh well. So you had a lot of companies. There were so many companies coming out with gaming titles that it just became overly saturated. And so what
I agree.
happened in 1983 going into 84, you had what was called the crash, the home gaming market crash,
Yep.
where from 1983 to 1985, the gaming market was essentially dead in the United States because people just got tired of the playing less than quality games or spending that kind of money to own a system or whatever. And whereas you have these cooler games at the arcade, kids like, look, I don't want to play this little digital guy here. I want to play, I want to play the big games at the,
Hmm.
at the arcades and whatnot. So kids got disinterested
Mm-hmm.
because of the titles and everything. And so you had a real problem, literally a crash where a lot of companies went out of business. A lot of gaming manufacturers went out of business because people just didn't want the product anymore. And that changed in 19, really, it changed in 1983. Again, parallel stories here. I'm talking about the US gaming market.
Hmm.
But as we said earlier, Pete, the gray area show, something America's always the last to get stuff a lot of times. You know what I mean? A lot of stuff comes out in Europe or Asia before it gets here. So in 1983, you had a family computer system in Japan. They called it Famicom. That Famicom system in 1983 became the Nintendo NES in 1986. So when the Nintendo came into the US in 1986, that revived the home gaming market, especially because they had um, all of the Nintendo gaming titles. So you had Mario Brothers, you had Donkey Kong, you had Super Mario Brothers, you had all these games that were, and again, the difference in quality between the arcade games and the home games on the NES. Again, they were able to shrink the difference so that the quality that you were getting at home was almost as good as the quality that you were getting at the arcade. Now, of course, arcade games kept going up, but with the quality that the NES gave you, and then a year later, I'd say about 2 years later, with the Sega Genesis, you also had what's that 16-bit? There was another 16-bit gaming system. So yeah, NES was 8-bit, and then you had now Atari came out with a 7800, which was 8-bit, but it wasn't. It didn't take off. I think people were so
Oh, you mean the Sega
disgruntled with
any chance?
Atari. What's that?
Do you mean Sega any chance? Because I know Sega, it was right at the same time it came out.
Well, Sega is Genesis.
Yeah,
So
Sega is
Yes, yes.
Genesis.
Sega, right. So Sega Genesis came out with their 16-bit system, but at the 8-bit level. So before that, you had your like your 4-bit systems or whatever. Nintendo NES was 16-bit. Atari 7800 came out. With, I mean, 8-bit, but Atari 7800 came out that was also 8-bit, but it didn't take off. Like they just, I think people were so disgruntled with Atari that they was like, fine, we're going with NES, and NES just sort of took over. And then in the next couple years, you had Sega Genesis came out. That was
Once
16-bit.
Okay.
once
You
that
also
came
had
out, that was
TurboGrafx
it.
16
Hmm.
that also came out. So
I don't
those
remember
two
the Turbo one
systems
at all.
then they went head to head, the TurboGrafx system and the Sega Genesis, but Genesis took off because they were able to negotiate deals with Major League Baseball and professional sports
Football.
teams and whatnot, football, and they were the first one. So like the first Madden game came out like on Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
So you really that's what helped to launch everything that came out. So then you had um, you know, after Sega Genesis, you had the Sega Master System, and then you had, all those in the 90s, you had all those gaming consoles, the Nintendo 64, and all those gaming
Mm-hmm.
consoles that
Mm-hmm.
kind of came in after. Now, I was already out of the game by that point. Like I said, I'm a classic 80s gamer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're gonna
I
get into
just
that in a
like go.
second. Before we get too
Yeah.
far, I want to read two bullet points I have for us, and then I'll
Mhm.
give the floor to Sheen, and we're gonna continue this conversation because I like where it's going. So, my second was the release of Space Invasion in 1978 made a turning point in history of gaming. The iconic arcade game involved correcting of a high score, like you mentioned earlier, Paul,
Hmm.
which lead to the gaming community against one another. Again, you mentioned it. I didn't know that at the time. The highest score possible future pervert of arcade gaming. That's one point. The second point I had was that Nintendo NES, like we said, was released in 1985. The first
Mm.
one was came off the factory line. Played
Hmm.
a pivotal role in the evolution of the gaming industry, and we're just about to get into that actually, which has
Hmm.
explained of the crash of the early 1980 that turned the tides.
Yeah.
With titles like Super Mario Bros., Legend of Zelda,
Yep.
and Metroid, the
Yeah.
NES launch of some of the most beloved and iconic franchise gaming to history to this date. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
before I want to let Hashim get into this. Paul, you have anything to add to that before I let Hashim get
No,
take?
not just just co-signing everything that
Yep.
that I mentioned earlier. But NES, what it also did was because they also introduced MIDI to the gaming platform, you had a lot of guys who invested in a lot of soundtracks that were made for a lot of those NES games. Like
Yeah.
Yes, I
my
remember that.
favorite game soundtrack game of all time is Rygar.
Really?
Hmm.
Now, Rygar, as far as the NES version, was in a lot of ways better than the arcade version, even though the arcade version had better graphics. But you had a lot of
Okay.
digital artists. So when you talk about like music industry, you had a lot of guys who had very historic soundtracks that they would write using MIDI synthesizers and whatnot. That became big in that time also. So you had a lot of composers who put some masterful pieces together that told the story of the game from start to finish. So that really, again, so with that technology, it really took off. But like to the earlier point about, again, NES coming in '85, it was already in Japan in '83. They just had a different name for it. They just packaged it differently and gave it to us later on. We were always a couple years behind where Japan was at the time in the gaming market. But I'll end it there.
And the back off what you was just saying there, you're saying when Japan had their games coming out around that 90s and what have you with the Sega. You remember a game system called Neo Geo when they brought
Yes.
out when they brought out a system, and at that time it was like $500-600,
Yeah, that was yeah.
and
Yeah,
the cartridges itself was almost close to $100. And they,
God
exactly.
I think,
damn!
yeah, I think they were
Yeah.
supposed to say they was like 2D or something like that. How they was
Yeah.
the graphics was nice on the game, but
Right.
at that time, who like us could really afford it?
That's the
And
thing. Yeah.
they
Not me.
stayed out for a little while, but then they just died. They crashed. I guess they couldn't. Who was buying it? Unless you was
That's right.
rich or
Unless you work
selling,
there.
or
That's
those
right.
boys at the time. Those are the only ones that had it. I knew maybe a person who had it, and we used to go over there just to see it, but in play we couldn't afford it.
Yeah, exactly.
Your mother
Yeah.
wasn't getting that, even if you.
Absolutely. And if you're going to spend that kind of money, you might as well go to the arcade. I mean, that's the
Yeah,
thing too.
there
From the
you go.
parents' perspective, it was like, well, it's cheaper. So I'm giving this guy, $3, $4, $5 in quarters to go play the arcade games for a couple hours or whatever, and I'm doing that every week. The rationale was, well, if I buy this home gaming system or whatnot, over time, I'll save money than having, driving them to the arcade and all that kind of stuff. And, but, for if you're going to pay that much for a gaming system, then you might as well keep playing the arcade stuff. Because so again, it's you got to find that sweet spot where the masses are versus just the bottom line trying to make money all the time. So
And that's
that's
what it
that's a,
was.
that's a hard thing. But it's
Here,
like it's what we talked about last week, Pete, between like Betamax and VHS. I mean, Betamax, I think quality wise was better than VHS. Same thing with those laser discs, but you know, you didn't have the titles, you didn't
here's
have
my
the
thing now.
too many people to have.
Before I let Hashim have the floor, here's my thing. During the Nintendo and Sega era, I felt the gaming world got so oversaturated with games. Like
Yeah,
you want a game on Mortal Kombat, you got one. You want a Street Fighter, then you had LBA, you had NFL, you had this, you got there were 3, 4 different racing games. There were Ghostbusters, and I remember the Ghostbusters. You couldn't ever finish that game because the same thing always happened, and you were going back in a circle.
Yep.
Mega Man, I can go on and on for hours. I remember
Yeah.
going to a local video game store to rent a game. Pick a game, and I'm like, holy shit, this fucking war is humongous. And that's
Yeah.
why the games now, if you can find a good shape, they're pricey because if you're a collector, because if you have it in mint condition, obviously, but most of them beat the living shit out of them. Like, use me and Hashim for example, because we're like maybe a couple blocks away. I can hear, go over his house, drop a game off, boom, there you go, and end of
Exactly.
story. And
You can't
versus,
do that no more.
I'm sorry.
That's it. You can't really do that no more. Me bring a game to your house and do that.
We're gonna get to that. Don't worry. We're gonna talk about this whole digital bullshit thing. And
Hey,
don't worry.
question: when did because I know for the longest time, like Blockbuster and a
Hmm.
lot of the rental stores didn't rent video games, but that changed at some point. I just don't remember when. Was
I
that the
think it was
90s?
the early '90s. I'm not
I
mistaken.
was
It
about to
changed.
say early '90s. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
actually, I'm gonna say late '80s, early '90s. Because I remember as a kid, I was still able to get Super Nintendo games at Blockbuster. At least where I used to live in Long Island, in New
hmm
York.
hmm
So before I get
right.
to ahead and give the floor to the team, Stacy says Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, Mrs. Pac-Man, and
That's right.
Central Peas, all great classic games.
That's
So
right.
Hashim, your
And the
turn.
top and to go on what she said, I remember when they used to have the tabletop. They used to be you could sit it right on your table. There
Yeah,
was an
exactly.
imitation like of the video arcade, and you
Yep,
used to play it just like that. The Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Donkey Kong,
that's right.
Space Invaders, Galaga,
Yeah,
that one. They used to have them just like that, a little tabletop, and you sit right at your house and play. It was just like if you was going to the arcade. The
that's right.
graphics was
See,
you used to
here's
love
the
it.
thing about arcade. I want to cut you off and say it's like the Blockbuster. You had the special smell, the sound, the feeling. And the arcades are coming back now. They're really coming back. But some of them are like freaking more expensive than ever. Like
Yeah,
I
you
walked
paying.
into
Yeah,
one a while back, actually with Stacy. Me and Stacy walked into one, and we looked at each other like, this is a fucking ripoff. It's like freaking like $20 just to walk in. I'm like, and then it's per game. I'm like, Jesus Christ! I better
yeah.
just buy another PlayStation and call it a day versus do this.
Yeah,
But
it's different now. Going to the game room and play, you'll spend up a lot of money, and you only played about a couple of games, one or
yeah,
two.
the
Right.
one game I used to play, and it was about $1.75 at the arcade. It was a snowboarding game because it was a big thing. You had to snap, get in and move, and you had the handles. Like it was like a Dance Revolution almost. That's another one that was expensive as shit. That was like $5 or something like that because people used to start it because they were really good at it and they were at it for hours. They're breaking a sweat. They're like drenched. I'm like worse than a workout. I'm like, shit. I'm like they're like jumping up
Yeah.
and down. I'm like, kudos to you. But the floor is yours, Timmy. Go for it. Let's see
But
Doc of
those,
Time now.
oh, Donkey Kong, please. Well, before I even go to Donkey Kong, it was Pac-Man. Going back some. That's whenever you used to go there after school or whatever the case, and
Okay, okay.
you line your quarters up on the screen. Everybody trying to take down the highest score.
Yep.
Nobody messed with your quarters or nothing. And when one finished, the next one come in. That was your line right there. And same thing with Donkey Kong. It was just like I said, trying to take down the high score. What was so crazy about that? That's what the graphics from then. Now let's move up a little bit in the years when Street Fighter came out, and like he said, what was that game you called? Dragon Lair.
Dragon Slayer. Yeah.
Dragons Lay,
That was
those
a good
type
one
of
too.
games, those games like that, it was lines again, and everybody, that's all they was playing was Street Fighter, Street Fighter, Street Fighter. I was never good in those games. I was just playing. I was the practice guy. I would get in with somebody and thought I knew what I was doing. They were just beating my tail. I was just spending money, but
Oh, I
that's
was the
how
same
they
way.
used
I
me.
was bad at it. I was horrible at them.
I couldn't Ryu and the one that was like I couldn't do
Ken.
nothing. I didn't know none of the moves.
Yeah.
But everybody just said, just play because they wanted practice. That's how they got better.
Right.
See, here's the
Right.
But
thing. If you remember, there were like some book. You could go buy a book at a game store or whatever,
uh-huh.
and there was the code like up, down, left, right, up, down. Like it was like the code was this goddamn big to do a
Yeah.
freaking super. I'm like, this better be fucking like a kill enough movie or some shit like that. But one thing I
Right.
want to mention before we get too far ahead. Do you guys remember when you used to get a game? All right, you bought the game. All right, and it was a great game, whatever. But it came out to be perfect. So it was no DOCs. Another word per Paul, because I know you're never familiar with DOC is download content. They will give you a download content for free, a patch. Day one, the game is broken. Call of Duty is famous for this now. They might give you a game, let's say Modern Warfare, or argument's sakes. I think the second one was a little broken when it came out. You play like, what the fuck is going on here? Then this day one, same day, about a couple hours later, they sent out a patch and fix all the problems. Oh, most of them released. That's the theory. But why could you just fix it before it was released? That's my question. Remember when the games used to have to be perfect from the day you spend your, what was the games back then? $30, I believe, right? When it came out.
Give or take, but still at that time it was 30, then it was going up to like 50.
It's up to 60 now.
60.
Yeah, but
it
my
was
point
high
is,
then.
my point is, you're spending your money, but you know you're getting a game fully completed, fully tested, and fully ready to literally for you to burn the chip out completely. Do you guys remember those times?
Yeah.
No, because like I said, well, I definitely remember when the game was, like you said, there were no bugs really in the game.
Yeah,
itself.
polished. In other words,
Because again, once you got the cartridge, that was it. I mean,
That was
you
it.
couldn't go in, you couldn't change it or whatever. But I think that's just in the tech industry overall. I think the methodology's changed a little bit. Rather than uh, trying to get something perfect out the gate, get something out and then make repairs as you go along. So I think just in my even in my field, in the IT field, I think that's actually a strategy, because you don't want customers waiting a year plus for something to come out when there's productivity that can be done now. So it's like, let's get the product out. Yes, it's got bugs and everything, but we're going to repair this as we go along. In fact, there's a methodology. In fact, I got a certification in it this past year. It's called Agile, where the idea is you just develop incrementally and you make it perfect. You get, for example, you get input from the users as you go along, and you perfect it over time. But it's not like you would, because a lot of times what happens in a traditional software life cycle, you may develop something, it takes say 18 months for a software to come out. Then it comes out, you think you're done, and then the user hates it because it's like, hey, this is not what we wanted, or they changed it, or the business changed, or something changed where it's not even as valuable as they thought it was going to be. Priorities change. But if you were working with those end users the whole time, hey, this could be better, that could be better. Hey, I think we like this. Hey, can you make a change here? You do it over time, and you still get a lot of productivity out of it. So I think that's just a change. So with the technology being able to have updates, for example, to a game, a lot of companies don't think that they have to have something out. But back then, because everything was like, we got to nail this now, or we're out of business. If you were a gaming company back then, if your game came out with bugs, you were gone. I mean, the word would get out and you were gone. So it's just a different mindset when you're talking about, making something that has to be final. Like, it has to be as perfect as possible before you can get the title out. So
see,
I think
it was a couple
it's just a
games.
change
When you played them, I remember playing
No,
a
no,
couple of
you're
them that were broken coming out of the box. And when you're running at one point, like, except you put a wall there or some kind of graphic and left it black. I'm like, shit,
Wow.
you could have put something there. Like, how hard could it have been? All right, Hashim,
That's
you're up,
what it
man.
was.
Go for it. Your floor is yours, buddy.
What are we talking about here? Where are we going with this here?
Your floor is yours. It's up to you. I have bullet points. I can go to the next bullet point. You want me to go to the next one?
Go to the next point. Let me see where we at.
All right, hang on. Let me get my
Because I'm gonna go.
cheat
I'm
sheet.
steady gonna go back. I remember when we was playing Tecmo Bowl. That was the biggest
Oh
thing at
man,
that time.
All right,
That,
my next point.
I don't see how we graduated high school or college, because college was like, before Madden came out, like Tecmo Bowl was like the
was
number
the
one,
game.
and it was so competitive. I can't tell you how. I mean, fights would break out
Yep.
over Tecmo Bowl. People were betting like money, like
Mm-hmm.
again, you're in college and it's like, I don't have a lot, but you're betting on Tecmo Bowl or whatever. I mean, it was so crazy back then that there was just certain cop rooms that's like, I can't stand it.
You don't
Now you
remember
guys are
that
going to
game, Peter?
graduate. You're playing.
All right, so before we get
You
too
remember
far,
Tecmo Bowl? Yeah.
I don't remember that. That one I
Oh
do
man.
not remember.
And if you got Bo Jackson, that was almost like the cheat code right there. He was running it back all the time. All you had to do was give him the
him or
ball.
Walter Payton.
Yes.
Walter Payton or Bobo, yeah.
All right,
Yes.
so a comment states to the left, and it's actually pretty interesting. Is all the games weren't all that manual of the little kids. Even Dave Buster's didn't really have much choices from them. And they're right. Back then, there weren't too many choices for the kids. It was mostly for adults with this target for, believe it or not.
But the
But
kids played that.
yeah, but kids took over this shit like everything else. So my next bullet point is, and I want to bring something up here. I just remember I didn't add to it. I'm adding to you on the fly. So the first handheld gaming device was the Game Boy by Nintendo in 1989. We all know that, obviously. It's still popular to this day. The evolution probably gaming with its motomatic display and a library of gamings. And that included Tetris, Game Boy, because of graphic plateaus selling millions units worldwide. And future handheld console to this day. Here's two things I want to add to that. I didn't add. At this time around, 3D came. What do I mean by that? Do you guys remember the Virtual Boy?
Who?
The Virtual Boy.
I remember seeing it. I never played it.
So a Virtual Boy was an attachment for your Super Nintendo. It was a big box. You put your eye on like through here, and problem, if you have eye problems, you're definitely gonna have eye problems after this fucking thing.
That shit went.
Yeah, it was all red, and it was supposed to be 3D. Well, let's say eye doctors got very rich after this damn thing. That's how bad it was for your eyes. The second thing I want to point is actually my buddy CQ just mentioned this the other day on his show. Was they just somebody, I can't remember who he mentioned it. I gotta go back and find out. Finally, after all these years playing the original Tetris, they finally broke the game. They finally hit the max level they could go. Once they hit the max level, it goes back to square one. It was some like high number, like I think it was like 105, 110, some stupid number. Like I couldn't pass a fucking 20 if I was lucky. Imagine going to 100 and something in Tetris. How fast you gotta go? I'm like, I can't move my thumbs that fast. I don't know about you
Some
guys.
people that did it. But let me go back one, Peter, on you. I'm sorry. You were saying the first handheld game, but you were just saying back in the 80s before Game Boy, Mattel had their own.
That it was that had a big library that involved a handheld. There were some ones, you had little ones like this.
Like my libraries, yes, that is true.
Okay, yes.
Size ones that you play one game, and like it was like I remember Power Rangers, for example, or football. It was you only could play one game.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Game Boy, you can play 100 games. That's why it did so much involve it. They evolved the handheld back then. So the handheld back then was only one game.
But you know what? We had that one game, and you played it like nothing. That was the biggest thing. You thought you was the man. Just had that one game. You knew nothing better.
Yeah, I can't remember what they were called back then. I've been trying to look it up, and I can't.
What?
Those handhelds. They were Nest something. I think what they're called.
They was by Mattel. Those games. That's I just remember. While he looking it up, you remember when they used to have the games on the watch? When they had the watch and they had like a little what game that little basketball I've seen those, the little watch games,
the liquid crystal display. So it was like the screen would be permanent, and you just had like this LED liquid crystal figure. He would just kind of go like this on the screen.
Yes. Yeah. And once again, like I said, we knew no better, but that was the biggest thing. You had fun. Right. You had fun. You was playing that, and it was good, like you said. But then Game Boy came in, and all that stuff that we're talking about went out the window.
Right. See, the only other one I would say had at the time that had close to a chance. Who do you think it was?
What?
What was it called? Game Gear. But you know why
Game Gear? Wow.
You know why Game Gear failed so bad? The batteries.
I didn't do it. Titles. What's that?
The batteries. That son of a bitch took 6 fucking batteries because this fucking white guy had one of them. I remember
they didn't have a power converter.
They did, but it was so expensive. I never had one because I had mine when I lived in Greece, so I couldn't find one. Then I got the rechargeable batteries, but they didn't last that long because think about how you maybe gave me a couple of hours out of it. Before I get through ahead, Hasbro Tiger Electric Games was the one handheld I used to get all the time. Was one game on it, and that's it. And I want to hang on. Let me look up how many hours a game geared.
But while he looking that up, let me bring up another game. Do you remember, Paul? It was a table electronic football game where they used to set the men up.
Oh geez.
And it go.
You might as well go back to like the racetrack, like the cars, the track sets that you had to set the track.
Oh, watch your mouth! I was about to bring that up next too.
I'm just saying.
Hang on 1 second. I'll cut you guys off.
To the magnetic board games. Man.
So a fully charged 6 AA batteries lasts you between 3 to 5 hours only. And imagine how expensive that gets pretty fucking fast.
Yeah, batteries were not cheap. And this is mine because that was before. I don't know. Did they have rechargeables at the time? I don't even know if rechargeable.
I think they did, huh?
You didn't get
but even then, but they were mad expensive also. Like, to buy that, and then you have to buy the charger. And the thing was, even with the rechargeables, they didn't last as long. You know what I mean? So it's like a Duracell or Rayovac or whatever back then might last you 6 hours. The rechargeables might last 2 hours. You have to start charging again. So then you have to buy more batteries, have batteries on backup.
Yep.
You know,
so what I had was like a big thing like this big almost for 6 batteries with charge. I remember just going to a local photograph store that used to have them. I'm like, and it was cost me, oh God, like it was like 30 to 40 drachma back then. So it calculated about like $60 or $70 today's money almost. This shit was expensive. I might be overreacting or underreacting or whatever, but those fuckers were expensive, and they didn't last that long either. It lasted me maybe 3 to 6 months, and then I had to replace those.
Yeah.
I remember we used to bust out and say you put the batteries in the freezer, and I think that recharge them.
You know you did not, guys. You didn't fucking do
did.
Yes, we did. I'm telling you.
That was one of the bro mitts. Back in the day, you know. Yeah, put the batteries in the freezer. Charges them and you put them back in. Yes, we used to try to freeze batteries.
Yeah.
Did it work or not? Results may vary.
Yeah.
But yes, we used to do that back in the day. Absolutely.
Oh man.
All right, the next point. Because I think you guys are having way too much fun with this one tonight.
You going back on this?
Hey,
I'm telling you.
Listen, the channel's evolving. Like me and Hisham just had this conversation off camera the other day. I started with the channel with grooming my beard and growing my beautiful hair that I miss. Now ain't a word out of you, Paul. I know you're coming with this shit.
I just don't like these passive aggressive slices that you're just throwing out there.
You see how you doing it, right?
This is passive aggressive right here.
I'm getting BMU on this channel next week. I swear, God, I'm gonna convince him to come on here and give me some backup here. God damn it! But the channel is evolving from grooming to grooming yourself as a man, as a person, as a something. So this is where we're going to now. We're going memory lane for a little bit. Even Hashim is like older than Dr. Time, but that's a different conversation for a different show.
You're always trying to make me be older than what I am.
Dude, funny fact, one day when we were working together, he was part-time, he went full-time. The first day he went full-time, he forgot something. He goes back in the walk-in, I go, man, he forgot that old timer. He goes, I fucking heard that. That's the one thing I heard across the goddamn kitchen. I go,
he would love to call somebody old, and I think he forget a lot more things than me.
Anyway, let's get back to the show for a minute. Let's get back to it.
All right, now you want to change it.
Here we go.
So the rise of 3D graphic game in the 1990s brings the new level of intimidation of gaming. Gaming like Super Mario 64 and Tomb Raider. She was actually hot.
Tomb Raider.
Showcase that process of 3D evolution official gaming to move evolution in the interest of gameplay experience. Side note: before PlayStation came out, about this era, Nintendo went to Sony to team up with them, and Sony, almost got it. They almost got it, except the paper. The ink wasn't even touched the paper yet. They were about to sign the paper, and right before they switched companies right under their legs, and I think they went with Panasonic, I believe, is that Sony got pissed off and says, "Fuck you," and they came out with a PlayStation, and the rest is history, like to say.
Mm.
So,
Wow.
Paul, you want
And
to go
that's
first
when
on this one?
Madden came about.
I believe so.
On what on what we doing?
We're talking about 3D graphic games at this point right now.
Yeah, see, I'm out. I'm see at this point, I'm out the game. Like I said, I'm sort of frozen in time,
Mm-hmm.
and so once you get past around like 1990, I'm essentially out, or I'm going back. I'm going retro at this point. And another aspect that we didn't talk about was besides the gaming consoles, what also happened in the mid to late 80s was the boom of the computer game market because you
Mm,
had Apple came out with the Mac in 84,
the
Apple
colorful
Macintosh in
computers.
1984. That was a game changer in terms of the home gaming market. And then PCs, especially when you had the Pentium chip that came out, when the Pentium chip came out, that also, and then you had brands like EA Sports and whatnot. They started producing games for the home for the computer market. So in addition to the NES and the Sega Genesis and all those other gaming consoles, the computer gaming market also took off. So I was also very heavily involved in that. And like I said, Mac at the time, Mac had built-in MIDI
Mm-hmm.
capabilities. So you got like real voice graphics. The graphics were at the time, even though on those early Macs it was black and white. But like games like I don't know if you remember Dark Castle.
Hmm.
That was like a major game on the Mac. That might have been like one of the best-selling games of all time. Because that really upped the market um, for the home computer gaming market. So that was another area that I was very much involved in. And again, a lot of those home games, especially with the Macs, as they came out with better systems, the Mac LC2, LC3, and whatnot, before the actual iMacs came out, they had a pretty decent history with graphics. I mean, the first computer I really ever bought and actually used was for college, and that was a Mac SE, the 9-inch
Hmm.
SE two system, and I did everything that for the whole 4 years. That was my book reports, but I did desktop publishing on the side. So like a lot of organizations that I was in, Mac, they had like fonts, to be able to size fonts and make cool graphics and photos. So I was heavily involved in all of that. And in addition to that, I also had a lot of games that if I didn't buy it, then a lot of guys, again, there was a lot of trading because it was on a floppy disk, you could copy it or you can download it. And when you started, we didn't have the web, wasn't there yet, but you had those boards, those bulletin boards where you would go in and people would share and swap. You would swap games there as well. So for a while there was like an underground market for games as well. But like I said, after I graduated college, I was heavy into Genesis and all that kind of stuff. I was out. So anything past then, Sega Saturn,
Oh, wow.
N64, any of that stuff, I'm out. I'm
So actually,
yeah.
believe it or not, at that time, and this is where I think it gets interested with gaming and kind of weird at the same time. So the gaming goes up and down with PC at least. It goes. You're a very strong PC guy at the time, and you want to build
Yep.
and do that, and you probably remember that Hashim pretty well, and yourself too, Paul. Probably, people were really into it
Yeah.
at a time. Like I was never a PC player because I don't like playing with my keyboard. I'm not a fan of playing on my keyboard.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Yeah,
Well, that changed too because again, just
exactly.
like when the mouse came out, when they started to make peripherals out besides the keyboard for the computer, that changed. So again, when Mac came out, they were like one of the first systems to have a mouse. Like, so if we can put a mouse to it, you could buy a joystick. So there were joystick consoles that you can buy, and back then Mac used SCSI. We don't even talk about SCSI. We used to call it SCSI back then. Um, that you can plug into either into the SCSI port on the Mac or on the keyboard that also had an additional SCSI port, and you could have a joystick. So it wasn't like you were limited to. And then once USB came out, so for a lot of those for a lot of those computers, those peripherals did become more readily available. So you didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
like you had to play on the keyboard all the time. So again, they definitely caught up.
Even I was never fine with a keyboard either or a mouse. I like a controller in my. I like that's the kind of
I
gamer I
got you.
am, and there's nothing wrong with that. Um,
There's some
what do
people love
you
that.
remember from that at the time?
I was never, like you said, a computer gamer. It just wasn't working for me using the keyboard and things like that. Once the EA Sports came out for the PlayStation and things like that, it was a wrap for me. That's all I played. I was just into Madden. We used
Yeah.
to have Madden parties. And that was the time I think around the first or second Madden came in, and you thought those graphics was the bomb.
Okay.
The ambulance used to come in the screen when somebody got hurt, used to knock the players around and everything like that. You just thought that was it. So they had, I think it was, what was that for EA, and what was the other system that was they had for Joe Montana? That was Sega? Was it?
I'm not
Uh,
sure.
Right.
I think it
It
was
was either
Sega.
Sega or it was who was the other one?
It was
You had Sega, you had Williams, you had
I think because it was Genesis and then no PlayStation. Then it was I forgot who it was that had Joe Montana football at the time. So you had the two systems fighting against each other, and it was either you played either or, and that's where it was. And
right,
then it just looked like PlayStation just took over. But now you're coming along, and Xbox came, and you just have a war.
right,
These kids, you don't know what to buy anymore. You
right.
And
just
we're
have
gonna
to
get
love a
into
system.
that. We're about to get into that in a little bit. The side note only, right? It depends which generation you're looking at. Are we looking at current generation you're talking about, or are you talking about uh, like PlayStation One and Xbox kind of?
I think you have to say current generation
Current.
because I think out the generation of V whatever, we don't care about that no more unless we probably into the PlayStation, the newer PlayStation model. But back when that's all it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was all it was. So you played, and like, once again, I'm gonna use that word again. We knew no better. The graphics was the bomb.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
back
And
in
I
the.
like
Go ahead, bro. Go. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go
so
ahead.
I like the idea of um, again, you play until you had like enough, and then you bounce. Like if I had an hour, I could play that hour and be entertained for an hour.
Yeah,
But I think what started to happen over time, and again, I get it also, especially if you're going to be spending mad money for these games. It's like the games became like stories, right? So it would be like you became more immersed in the game. Like if I want to play shoot 'em up for an hour or whatever, I can do that and get back to work or do whatever. Or sometimes you just need that mental break where you just need to do a little something and then get back to it. But a lot of these games now, I know you can save and kind of pick up where you left
you
off.
pick up where you
But
left
a lot of
off.
times with that, sometimes the reflexes come off a little bit. You know what I mean? Like if like especially back in the day when you were playing a either an arcade game or a home video system, you were like in the zone, like where you could predict and tell when to move, when not to move. It was almost like muscle memory. So
I
let's say
agree.
if you save where you're at and then try to come back. Now you're in the middle of whatever, or maybe you might have cleared a stage, or you couldn't get off the stage, or you couldn't get to the next stage. But if you had that reflex to go back and try to get to that stage, you would be able to do it.
Paul, hang on 1 second. We have one more person come in. I want to introduce them, and let me do a transparent thing. Let's get her in right now. Let's welcome our new guest tonight, guys. So, welcome.
Hello, can
Hello
everybody hear
there.
me?
Yeah,
Yes,
you're
we
fine on my
can.
end.
Okay.
So,
Now, Miss Jenny, are you a game person?
No.
Okay, okay.
it's okay. She can involve in a conversation. This
That's
is
fine. No,
open
that's
for
fine.
everybody.
I was getting excited. It's like she does her thing on the
Bro,
game
believe
network
it
and
or not,
everything, and I'm thinking if she's a gamer also, oh man,
yeah, believe it or not, there are a good amount of women that are hardcore gamers. I mean, they're worse than us. They're like,
bro, this I will say, I've never met a serious female gamer at
I could
any
say the same
stage in
thing.
my life
Mm-mm.
ever. Even at the arcades, that was not a place where you would see a lot. If she was there, it was because her boyfriend was there. But
Yeah,
you did not see women actively playing and who were good. That's the thing. Like women who would like give you a game. I never got around any females like that ever. So
Oh,
that
I'm
would
gonna
be like a
correct you on that
unicorn.
right now. It's a YouTuber called Wolf Sniper or something like that. Snow Wolf Sniper like that. She's a
Sniper Wolf.
Thank you. She is a professional gamer.
Oh,
I mean, hardcore. I'm like,
listen,
scares the shit out of white meat.
listen. I believe. Look, I'm not saying they don't exist. I know that they
Oh yeah.
do. But I'm saying in my personal life growing up, like I never had a had a girl was like, hey, let's play Madden or let's play Sega or what. Like I was just like men only. It's like if you were there, you were just just hanging out. But I never met a serious female gamer ever in your person. Certainly not from that era.
So let me ask our new young lady right here. What do you remember from the '90s, at least? The '90s, early 2000 with 64 and stuff like that.
I don't remember a lot of anything from the 90s because I was born in 98. But
Oops. Dun
but
dun dun. On my
I
end.
will I will say that I do have a little bit of experience with video games.
Okay. Okay.
I don't play them anymore, but when I was a kid, my brothers and we had a GameCube and we used to play that. And then when I got a little bit older, they started playing like on the Xbox 360. And we never had a PlayStation. We were always like a Xbox house. And the first time I played a game that was not like a child game was Red Dead Redemption, and I played that on the Xbox 360. Oh no, I'm sorry, not Red Dead Redemption. It was another zombie game, and like the logo of it was like a bloody hand. I can't think of the name right now. Maybe but man, I can't think of it right now. But I played that, and I don't know. I had like a renaissance where I was a video gamer for a little bit. Where that probably happened when I was like 15, and I was playing that game all the time. And then that was right before Call of Duty Black Ops came out, and then that came out, and my brother got that. And everybody was on that. I remember that vividly. Like that was a really big game, and they got Xbox Live, so then we could go on live and talk to people all over the world, and that was so much fun. And I did that. And when I was 16, I was really, really big into it. And my friend and I got her into it. And we would both go up there like every night after school, especially during the summertime when we had a whole bunch of time. We would get up there and we had friends and we would meet up with them. And I eventually got so good. Now, Mr. Bennett, I never said I was extremely good, but I got good enough to where I could do a 360 no scope. And that was like the peak of my life.
Right.
So that's pretty much my background when it comes to gaming.
Believe it or not, Black Ops was the evolution of gaming for Call of Duty, at least shooter, because that's where the high. The reason I say that, on a specific reason, is that the generation that Call of Duty was actually goddamn good. Not like now, like here we go, another year, another Call of Duty, another skin, another same game. And it just, Call of Duty is not what it used to be, unfortunately. And it's a sad thing. It's sad because Call of Duty was a very... Look behind me. I have the old Call of Duty stuff right there. I like the old school. Right behind... hang on. Right there. I have the ghost mask. Can you go wrong without the ghost mask? Please tell me. If you don't know ghost... I can't... Jesus can't even help you at this point.
I was out at that time. Although I will modify my previous statement just slightly. Because what happened in the 90s, those dance games came out. So if you remember the big dance game, you had the 4 arrows.
I was just talking about that in the arcade, if you remember, a minute ago.
And you would dance on it, but then they came out with the home version. So again, you would get the game, you would get the pad, you would lay it out on your floor, and that I would see the ladies get good at, because you had, if you could dance, you could, or you had coordination, you can work those arrows like crazy or whatever. So that I would say is probably the first time I saw like ladies really playing as much as the guys. And then you had it where they had the 2 pads, so you had the two stands, so you have competition. So going at each other, and you see those arrows going left and right and all that stuff. So I definitely recall ladies in there. But prior to that, I just don't remember any serious female gamers at the time.
Yeah,
Man,
Dance Dance Revolution.
And I wasn't even
You'll
good at
get beat
that.
up
Yeah,
on these
that was-
streets. Saying that, like I have wife in the chat. She's gonna. I'm like seeing her screaming at the keyboard, like, "What do you mean no?" I can see her screaming at the screen right now.
Yeah.
But you might not have seen it, but there were around from I think the '80s. They were like camouflage. I want to say they don't want to come out. They were like hidden behind like a little ninjas. But now there are a lot of good games. You can literally have a conversation. And me and anybody, I can have a conversation about, hey, have you ever played this game? Like, and they go, like, I just had a conversation 2 days ago with somebody at work. I go, I'm a Zelda fan. She has a big Zelda tattoo and everything. Like, I went, sweet. Like, I got a conversation with somebody. But with the Dance Dance Evolution, when it came out home, I fucking hated that game. I hated that evolution at home. Because I tell you what, if you're living in an apartment, and I did at the time, my upstairs neighbor.
You can disturb your neighbors for sure.
Oh, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I go, glung, 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 glung. I'm like, I got to fucking work the next day, man.
Yeah. You can definitely irritate some people.
Yeah.
But I always said that, for guys like us, the girl to marry, right? You marry the gamer, or if she's into WWF or WWE, or again, if she's just a hardcore, just sports head in general. So those are the ones you go. If she get everything else, all thing else being equal, if she has those, she's a keeper. So if you can find someone who checks all the boxes and is a gamer, yeah, that's probably the one you need to. That's probably the one you need to hook up with.
Yeah,
that's right.
Let's get the next point out of so we just got over the 3D. Now let's get in the evolution, and this one we're starting going to newer generation a little bit. The release of Sony's PlayStation in 1994 marked the debut of the base disc gaming controller, plus used the shift and allow largest game, pretty much larger graphic games in a disc versus a cartridge.
Right.
So here's a side note people don't know. And before let me finish my statement. Setting the stage of modern era gaming. Side note on the Nintendo, and people don't know this. The Super Nintendo and Nintendo, the same board chips they used for the games, they were using in nuclear warhead missiles at the time, or warheads in general. Think about it.
Wow.
And when you're playing Nintendo, like, shoom, I'm like,
Well, listen, I mean, we wouldn't be in this space if it wasn't for the war stuff. So the internet, the satellites, the whatever,
Thank you.
Cell phones, all that stuff comes from wartime effort. Nobody, so that's,
Well, that was such a good thing once they upgraded from the cartridge to the disc, because I was tired of blowing in them and trying to make it work after a while of sitting there playing. And then it made it much easier with the disc. You didn't have to buy everything. You can go to the video store, your local, it didn't even have to be Blockbuster, or your local video store, and rent the game, play it. And if you didn't like it or whatever, but we tried to finish it anyway and bring it back to get something else. So that was a very good upgrade with the disc, and it made it the graphics. That's when the graphics came along and just started getting much better and much better. And what we thought we had back when we was talking about the Atari and thing like that, you couldn't go back.
Right. So educate me, because I'm totally
okay.
My daughters, they'll still put in the arcade stuff, but
so
do you still buy now, or you just download? Like, what's the deal now?
Okay, so it really depends what kind of gamer you want to be. I'm a comic gamer. Like, I'm too fucking fat and lazy to go to the store, so I download it. Simple as that.
Okay.
So reality, I used to love getting a physical disc. Let's just pretend this is a game. I was a fan of that. But it got during COVID. Imagine trying to get a game during COVID.
Yeah.
It was nearly impossible. A, B, it was way too expensive. If you say you got, I don't know, Assassin's Creed, for example, Valhalla, argument's sake, because that came out towards the end of it. So, like, yeah, you could get it. But, like, me getting a PlayStation 5, as she was there that day I got it, I was jumping for joy when I finally ordered it. You remember that day I worked
right
there?
Ordering, yeah.
I looked at him like I got the email, all right, and I go, cover me. He goes, what? Cover me. I went to, motherfucker. I ran to the locker room. I got on the phone. I'm like, grabbing my credit card. I'm like fighting with it. Get kicked out 5 times. I finally ordered it. I wanted a digital by ending disc. So the discs, yes, they're still around. So it depends what system you have. Let's say you have a Wii Switch. That's where it really comes down to, is it worth buying a disc? The Wii has little chips. The little remember the old SIM cards you used to get back in the day?
Yeah.
Similar. Those depends on the game. Some of them are worth a lot of goddamn money, believe it or not, even for a Switch. So it really depends on the grade. It really depends. Gaming is is because it could be very expensive, or it could be worth nothing. It really depends. Like I have some 64. Should I bring it out?
Huh?
Yeah, what?
So I bring it out. Should I pop out my collection, my old systems? I have I literally have some stuff. I have a PlayStation. I got a Game Boy. Game Boy of Color. I got some stuff. I collect them still to this day. And some are expensive. Like a 64 right now can go for about 120, 130, easily.
Yeah, I guess that's considered vintage. But it's weird because
not vintage. You're wrong there. Retro gaming is hot right now.
No, I get it, but what I'm saying is they're coming out with consoles now. Like I mean, you could buy like an Atari retro system, like an Atari 2600 or 5200 retro system, and it has all the games in it. Like literally, the only thing you need to do is plug the system. It looks like the original system. You plug it into your HDMI port on your TV, but all the games, it's like hundreds of games. That's the thing too. I mean, back in the day, it's like one disc was like it was big, you know what I mean? But now you can fit all of those games essentially on a CD or DVD at this point. So it's like everything is kind of built in.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point I said earlier, I am the ultimate retro gamer because I don't really play any games since the early 90s. So that's why I said MAME. If I do have time to play, I'll use MAME emulator and play those old games, Pac-Man's, Space Invaders, whatever.
I like those too. They're great. They're great.
Yeah, but outside of that, so I'm definitely with the retro.
Before we move on, I like to address a couple of things. I want to welcome Wife in the chat and Lou. Thank you for dropping in. If you guys like to join our conversation, please drop your email in the chat, and I'll send you the link immediately. But the retro game, it's hot right now. You can buy elevators for a couple $100, like 200 tops, if you want the most expensive one. But if you wanted just like a nice like size of your phone, you can put in your pocket, and when you're on the toilet, I call it, you can play. It's great to get it. And someone carry up to like 300 to 400 games, depends on what system. Like that's where I'm going to go to my next topic. I remember growing up with the handhelds. My favorite game was the Pokemon. Like that was the game to play back then. I don't know any of you guys remember Pokemon. I don't know if you guys are too old or too young now. I'm right in the middle.
Like I said, I hit a hard
you're
line.
Out. 1, 2, 3.
I only remember the Pokemon because of the kids. That's about it. They still laugh at me trying to, they used to tell me about the characters and this and that, and that's too many. The cards, the games. At one time, if you remember, I don't know if anybody remembered, it was something, I don't know if you had to do it on your phone and you was going out in the street trying to collect them.
Pokemon Go. Oh my God.
The kids was getting hit by cars and all that old craziness because they was just running in the street trying to catch them.
Yeah, craziness.
Yeah. I was like, what in the world?
No, actually, they found a way to hack that game at one point. So if you went to a certain alley, you got jumped. That's how bad it was. They were stealing your money, your wallet, your phone. I'm like, over a game? Come on. What can we just have fun? Even that got destroyed at some point. I'm like, Jesus Christ. It was too many. And we're like, yeah, wife, she says, right, hit by a car. Yeah. I remember a cousin. No joke. He was playing. He was like a little driving. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm not getting in your car. 1, you're a New Jersey driver, and 2, you're too crazy in my opinion. So I'm out. No offense, guys. I know
Yeah.
two of you guys are from New Jersey, so I apologize right now.
Yeah, it used to
Now
be
we are,
crazy.
everyone's on their phones doing something, so it
That's
doesn't
why I love
require that
CarPlay.
same.
But let's get to the next point actually, because I love how our conversation's going. So where did I leave off? Okay, now we're talking about online gaming. Online gaming became an institute population in the 90s, early 2000s with the introduction of the Xbox and PlayStation 2 with officially online multiplayer campaign. This made a significant shift is how gaming enters earlier than contact to the world. In other words, how we experienced gaming back then started
Yeah,
in the early 2000s.
right.
I back then I had mixed feelings about online gaming. I still have mixed feelings to this day. So I like the old gaming, like you can come over and play a game. Okay,
Hmm.
but in some places um like now, I live in PA. I have friends who live in Maryland. Like King, who's been on the show, he lives in Maryland. I have another
Mm.
friend who lives in Alaska. I have my other best friend who lives in Greece. I don't think my friend in Greece is gonna be coming over anytime soon and playing any games with me. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
So
right.
it's a good for it has a purpose, but I also feel it kind of like separated us. But what I hate about online gaming, and I think everybody on this panel is going to agree with me, and people in the chats, is how nasty people get.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
Well, yeah, because you don't know. Yeah, you don't know anyone. See, I think the thing that's really hurt, but I think it's a societal problem more so than just a gaming problem. I think the gaming is just a symptom of
Hmm.
it. Again, when we were gaming growing up, it was about the neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You hung out, you played with the kids in the neighborhood. I could go down to Jimmy's house, I go down to Tommy's house or Raheem's house. And again, everybody knew each other. So again, the people you played with, or even if you were in college, you were in the dorm room. It was guys on your floor, guys from the next dorm. There was a connectedness to everybody when you played. But now it's like you're playing against people. Now, again, if you're friends and or if you're people you know and you're away from them and play, yeah, it's great. It's like social media. It's like you can stay connected with family and people that you may not always be able to travel and see. But yeah, but you get a lot of people who are strangers, and again, it's difficult to build those bonds, virtually like that. I mean, so and a lot of these guys don't even identify themselves face to face. That's the thing. You just see everyone has their own image, like Dragon's Lair 691 or something like that. Like they're not like real people. Like even us, like I've never met you guys face to face, like one on one. But the fact that you guys see me and I see you, there's a there's like a respect there. There's a recognition
Hmm.
that's there that makes it easier for us to form a relationship and whatnot. And hopefully one day I get a chance to meet all of you face to face if that opportunity ever opens up. Where we can have like a live. I'm always talking to Black that we need to one day have a
Shit, we could
live.
do a in
We're
person
gonna we're gonna
live.
meet in a central place. We're gonna have this big round table, and everybody's going to be seated at the table. We're going to have multiple people, and everyone's just like we do on Tuesday Night Talk or whatever. Everyone goes around and has a point, but the camera zooms goes around the room like.
yeah, I would
So I'm
like
looking
that.
forward to like having a day like that, have that kind of interaction with one another, like face to face, like really live.
Let's do
But
it.
in a global gaming community, yeah, you're going to have all kinds of schemers and just people who are just looking to just foul up the situation because they're not about trying to the interpersonal skills that we used to be have to develop when we were kids or when we had communities. It's not as potent as it was back then. So yeah, it is a drawback to the to the environment, and it doesn't make it possible.
So here's my, I keep a little funny story, side story. When I was playing, WWF back then, it was SmackDown. I remember I used to suck at it. I'll be honest, I used to suck at it. I was one of the which one was I? I used to pick The Rock. I think was it. I think it was The Rock,
Mm.
and and I sucked at it. And we're just laughing at it, how funny it was. And you see him go coming down the ladder, doing this, doing that. And I'm like, it wasn't a bad game for the time that is, and I still think it's not a bad game. I think it's actually a really good game from what we play. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But let's
So
go back a little bit. Wait a minute before you go to your next thing and touch on what he said that you're around people, you playing online. But it changed so much from when we used to, you talk your little crap if you played football or whatever the case, you talk your little crap. Now you get online, they cursing your mama, they cursing you hard, talking bad about you. You never even seen these people and they dogging you bad. You sitting there like, damn,
exactly. So
Yeah.
I'm
now,
just playing the
actually,
game.
it's funny you
Slow
said
that,
that.
calm down.
It's funny that now they, at least Call of Duty, I can mention that because that was the one I actually still play online. If you get on, they have rules now, Congress. If somebody reports you or if they catch you saying, F your mom or yada, 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 whatever it is, they flag you, you get kicked off. You can get
I was
banned
about to
from the
get to
game.
that. Yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a
yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
that going off.
And like I said,
They,
I mean, we used to talk trash playing Tecmo. I mean, that was like the
yeah.
ultimate like
But
trash talk over
talking
Tecmo.
trash versus what they do
But
now is different.
but I'm saying you would do that, and like I said, guys would get like upset, like near blows, like, hey guys, like you have to kind of step in and separate guys because they would get
He was
upset and
competitive.
stuff. Because part of it was you would talk the trash because again, you only had that controller, right? So the idea was if you talk trash, if you get the guy to select play A, like up A versus up B or something like that, anything to throw them off their game where they take them on because once it's in, you can't change it, right?
Mm.
So it's like you will it's almost like psychological warfare where you're trying to get them to make a mistake in the game because these controllers are so specific. So that was strategy to a degree. But again, you couldn't allow it to get to a point where it got physical. You know what I mean? And again, cooler heads would prevail because guess what? You're going to be there tomorrow playing the same thing. So it's like we're going to squash this or whatever. We understand it's just in the context of the game or whatever. Or if you did go too far, you'd be like, all right, my bad. I'm just trying to. Just
I
trying to
actually
but
want
some
to
guys were so
read one
hyper
comment
competitive they would
that
get to that.
I want to read a comment that I can't answer it from Lou. It says, "Yeah, I cannot do rough trash talking online gaming," and I agree with that because come on, we're there for having fun. Why are you getting so serious throwing the controller? I see people with smash controllers. If you look up kids have tantrums over video, go up to their plasma TVs, put the fist right through it, like it's a game. What
Now
are you?
it is now even back then it wasn't no question. It was an adrenaline rush.
Of
I
Yeah.
course.
can't even especially even in the arcades where you were going again. You're like right next to a guy. Now I don't know, Hashim, if you're playing two player on the stand up arcade game, and if you're a big kid, you guys are pretty close.
Yeah, you're close.
So, have you ever someone threw an elbow at you? Like again, you're player
I
one,
never
the
had that
guy's
happen to
right
me.
next to you. You guys are going left and right, and literally someone will elbow you or push you aside or
Or try to
anything to
push you
throw
over
you.
to mess up your
Exactly.
movement.
That's what I'm saying. So you would get some of that heat. So I'm saying that certainly again there is an adrenaline that
Yes.
happens with the excitement of the game, especially you trying to beat this person, you're trying to get the highest score. Again, sometimes there's money on the line. It's like, look, I bet you won't beat me this time, but I'll bet you $5. Well, back then, $5 as a 12-year-old,
That was
that's
a lot.
pretty serious,
That was
So
your lunch
yeah,
money.
so you took it to that nth degree in terms of but it was about the competition. You know what I mean? It was about the environment. So I certainly see, the emotions getting up for it. So as far as
Mhm.
it's just a game thing, yeah, that's after you go home or after you leave the corner store, the arcade or whatever, yeah, it's just a game. But when you're in it, nah, it's all out.
Okay,
And
I
it
get
used to
it
be
in the
back in the day,
moment.
guys would say, I would rather you guys play the games and duke it out there than duke it out in the street. You know what I'm saying? So for a time, there was this belief that video games would help to curb a lot of the violence or whatever, because rather, you would do it in a simulated way versus physically where people were getting harmed from it. So but that emotion's real though. I could definitely see that.
See,
I
I
hear
want
some
to.
of these hold on, Pete. I hear some of these conversations on these headsets and things like that. It look like they coming. They look like if they could, they come into your house. It looks so they so angry where they look like they ready to come see you. It's crazy. I don't understand what's the anger. So much anger playing these games and Call of Duty and a lot of these other things. They're serious. They are very serious. And the vulgar, the such n words and it's crazy. It is
Yeah.
crazy.
See, here's where I think gaming has gone a bit too far with this of the Vogue and all of stuff. I'm on gaming and I don't turn my mic on because I'm not gonna get involved with that bullshit. And I mute most times. There's one time I didn't. People get argued about the game and said, "Oh, here's my address. Meet me outside." I'm like, seriously, you're giving your address to a stranger that don't know who they are and do what? I
Yeah.
think it's fine. But my thing is, okay, I can stand in the moment. You get mad, whatever. But imagine breaking a couple controllers. They're like 60 goddamn bucks, those motherfuckers.
I was about to say they ain't cheap no more.
No, you can't. And you can, if you try to get it at the aftermarket, you just waste your money. They're not gonna work no one year and a half. But let's get into the second
Mm.
point of this. The recent years, the
The
gaming
what?
industry, the recent games in recent years, the gaming industry has seen a rise in popularity of mobile gaming. So we're back in where topic you may know a little bit, Paul. Like Angry Birds, Candy Crush Saga,
Right.
Pokemon Go
Yeah.
have arcade mass success, reaching millions of players worldwide through our smartphones and tablets. Who wants to
Yeah.
tackle this one first?
Hmm.
Yeah.
You could tag in
Go
because I
ahead. Go
never
ahead.
played those. No, I said I've never really played those games. I watched people. I never got into that. I was like, I can't play these things. I just got frustrated and said, forget it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got big
Like I
fat
said,
thumbs. That's why.
this was kind of my foray again back into gaming. So again, if I haven't, because I'm trying to think, I haven't played MAME or arcade games in a while. So,
Okay.
but with me again, I can be very select with my games. I have currently right now on my phone, I have 7 games, but reality is I only played 3 of them. I have a baseball game, and one of them is like a home run derby thing. I have a spades game where that's where I will play people, globally or whatever. And I have a like a Galaga type game, just shooting
Hmm.
aliens away. That's it. Because for me, like I said, sometimes I just need, like I said, just a break from whatever it is that I'm doing. Just something to pass the time. I'm in the bathroom. I'm whatever. I just need about 15 minutes or so just to release, and then I go back to it. I just don't have time for hours of gameplay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was the thing that I kind of saw, and the thing was with older people as well. It's like, okay, I get it. You're a kid, you're a teenager, you're even in college, but once you get to college, you know, you may have to change up some of your habits to a degree because it's like, look, you got studies, you got stuff to do, and I'm always asking myself, like, where do you find the time? You got a family, you got kids. Where do you find the time to spend hours gaming? So for me, it's always been, 15, 20 minutes, boom, I'll put it in, I get back. If I'm at work or whatever, I'm at lunch or whatever, I check my phone for news or emails or whatever. Yeah, I may get in 15 minutes, shoot them up or whatever, clear level, and then I get back to it, later on, maybe in the evening or something like that, and I'm good. Or I may play a puzzle game or something like that, something that, something senseless, just with the mind.
See, that's
And that's it.
was the
So it's
old. I'm sorry, Coach. That's why so well the older gamer systems. They're really good. You could play 20, 30 minutes, select
that's the
save,
earlier
and
point
move on.
that's the earlier point that I made.
But
Like, it was
but
the levels got harder,
mhm,
but again, you could stop at a point
Mm-hmm.
and
you
walk
can
away
still
from
do
it.
that. You can still do that. But except saving it, you put your system on a rest mode, like a sleep mode. You pause it in rest mode and walk away and come back, start back up,
Right.
and it's fine.
But what I didn't like about that, as I said earlier, was there is a muscle memory, right? Because like I said,
Mhm.
when you're really into it, when you're in that kind of gaming zone, and you remember like even the subtle moves that you make or whatever, when you try to come back to it later on, you're not into it. Now you stop it because you have to, because yeah, you got to go somewhere, you got to go to work, you got to go to school, you got an appointment, something like that. Sometimes it's not always easy to pick up where you left off in those kind of role sort of fantasy games where again there's a story, there's a board, there's a next level, and you have to sometimes get your mind back into where you were. With the simple shoot 'em up games or the sports games or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, I can start at any time and just kind of just get into it. You know what I mean? It's not a, because most of back then everything was kind of randomized, so you just kind of took
Hmm.
stuff as it came to you, rather than, okay, there's a store, I got to clear this level, I got to find this secret passage. Now, what were those moves again I have to do to get there? And just so it just keeps you engaged for a lot longer. And that even started to happen, especially with the Sega Genesis. I mean, Sword of Vermilion, that was a game I was into for a long time, and it was just like days.
Yeah.
So you pay 3-4 hours, leave, come back, play it again, and you try to get to the end. But at least they had it like the end. You basically you get there, you kill the last dragon or the last master of the whatever, you save the girl, and they used to play. Now this is one of my favorite parts. This is the most um, uh, satisfying things about the older gaming. When the game was over, they played the end credits.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you would get the programmers, the composer, the
You got everybody.
synthesizers.
They still do
Thank
that.
you very much. So it's like, yeah, it's like the title scroll of the
Credits.
movie. Like you
Like a
finished
movie.
the game. Yeah, it was like, and but now it's like these games is like endless. Like where's the end? Is there an end to
That's where I wanted to
this?
go next.
Yeah.
So here's my issue with today's game. Assassin's Creed is a very good example. The last game, not the last game, the game before the last, Valhalla, was open world.
Mhm.
Oh my god, that game's so goddamn fucking long. And like to the point, like I got more gray hair just thinking about it.
Yeah.
It was open world RPG kind of game. It's way too long because you gotta do this, you gotta do this. It's too much, too much. I don't like the old school games. Go to point A to point B. That's it. Straight line. It's not hard. Like Zelda was a perfect example. You had to go to this mission to do X, Y, and Z, but you had to loop around to get this and come back. I'm okay with that. But now you're adding like open world. You gotta do this. Oh, you got sidetracked because you found something cool. Do I need to say more?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I know. I see your brain cooking right now. Go for it,
It's
my man.
cooking because a lot of those games, like you said, it is too much. And me, I personally, I don't have time like that. I
Yeah,
want to
man.
sometimes. I have a play. Let me tell you something. I have a PlayStation 5 now. I got it. I can probably count on my hand, both hands, how many times I played it. And if I did,
Right.
I got on there. I got online and played somebody in football. We played one game. It was done, and that was enough for me. I got things to do.
Okay.
So,
Exactly.
and I don't come back to it probably another couple of days. I want to, but you just don't have time.
Yeah.
You got other things to do, and it's not like how it was before. Where I could just sit there, and sit there, and you play the game. You gotta go to the wife, then you got to do kids, and then you got other things to do business.
Grandkids for your
You got
channel.
too
Right.
much. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. And
I got
and to me that's one of the I don't know if I call it a danger of gaming. Like I said, everything, you can take the good with the bad. And I think for generations of people, it was again a break from the everyday. If you couldn't go out
yeah.
and play you couldn't go out and play football, baseball because it was raining or something like that, right? You were
Mm-hmm.
going to be indoors, fine. You can play your video games or what have you. There was still that sense of community that was there. But is it becoming like, I don't know if you guys are like Star Trek fans or whatever. There was a Star Trek, The Next Generation. I think
Mm.
there was an episode where there was a game, right? I don't know if you remember. There was like this game that was going around the ship, and actually the game was actually this is how good science fiction is because it's so predictable of the future. But the game was so addictive that everybody on the ship was playing it, and the whole thing was a distraction by this alien group that had because they wanted to take over the ship. So they
Mm.
had so many people hooked on the game, like bar fights were breaking out in 10 forward, and they were just so it was such a. I think it might have been like from the first season or first or second season or something like that, but the thing was it became such a distraction, such an addiction that it nearly destroyed the enterprise, or the enterprise was almost taken over. So it's just so even today, I think with a lot of young people, with the distract, I mean everything distracts me. Social media is distracted. So many distractions out there. But when you have folks who are literally for hours playing video games or any kind of thing that you have that much time invested in, when you could be doing things to help to develop your skill set or your network, or even just meeting people. Just like I said, I think there's definitely something with emotional intelligence and communication skills that I think a lot of people are lacking today, even to even look you in the eye and have a conversation with you, because again, they're in their basements and they're in their on their screens and not getting that real person to person contact that you need to have. So I think
Here's my
there is a
pushback on
point
this.
here that is yeah,
Actually, I want to touch base on this. There's a little pushback I have with this. So I'm
sure.
not saying you guys as parents. I'm just going to talk in general. And I think wife might have an opinion if she's still in the chats. So people who have kids, give them a tablet. Let's pretend this is a tablet. As 4 or 5 years old, whatever, how young they are, that's the first thing they give them a tablet to shut them up because they don't want to be dealt with.
Yeah,
So we're
definitely.
teaching them at a very young age. It's okay to put your goddamn face in a goddamn tablet because you have no life. Your tablet is your life. Your screen's your life. That's what I have a problem is. So, like myself, is a place and time for me to turn my phone off. Like when I go to example, like when I'm in the bathroom, for example, or when I'm sitting in a doctor's office, I'm just trying to kill some time, or I'm like on my break, whatever the case is.
Mhm.
But you don't want to be shoved in that screen all your life. That is my issue. So
Yeah,
my issue is they were saying, "Oh, gaming kills brain cells, whatever." Some of the
yeah, I remember
most
that.
smartest people, like yourself, Paul, who is in IT, his is questionable, but most people is they're smart motherfuckers. Like
Yeah,
all of us, all three of us, even Hashim. Like I don't give him shit, but he's actually a very intelligent conversation. If we sit down and have a conversation, I never had a bad conversation with him. We have always find something to talk about. That's how intelligent the guy is. Yes, Hashim, I give you credit for once. So gloat.
I'm listening. That's why I'm not going to stop you because I don't hear it much.
right.
But my point's trying to
Yeah,
get to.
I never bought the, because I remember again they talked about that in the '80s,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
You see
And they
in the
still say
'80s
it to
that,
this
oh yeah,
day.
it's frying your brain cells. It's negative, like and a lot of like more like the conservative parental groups that would be out there and stuff, but they didn't like anything, right? They didn't like video games. They didn't like rap music when rap was good. Okay, you see, Robert, when rap was good,
Now you're
like in the
asking a
'80s
lot
and
there.
whatnot. When yeah,
Yeah.
so there were just some people who just they just killjoys all over the place with that kind of stuff. So I
But you
never
got to go ahead.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. No, I
No,
was
so
going to
they
say, but you have to remember, it was different back when we had to go outside, like you was talking about, to
yeah
the stores and play the games. You was actually talking to people. You was actually conversating. You was there, and it was that's what it was. Now you
yeah
don't have to go out to do these things. You just speak, and or, you don't even have to see them. And this is what it is. There's no type of conversation. They don't know how to communicate, and that's where the problem comes. This time, this day and age, it's totally different. So from what
yeah
you're saying,
yeah. But like I said, I just think it's just a larger societal problem. So if you add everything together, gaming, social media, whatever it is, the idea that for people to be able to, I mean, even dating, like we're old enough to know, like, if we wanted a girl, we had to go talk to her. You know what I'm saying? That was the thing. It's like I gotta muster up the courage to go up and say hi,
hmm
what's your name or whatever. Now everyone's just dropping in the gram. You just drop in the DMs or whatever and say, hey, that kind of thing. But you still got to work on that. So I don't, like I said, I'm not an anti-tech guy. I think a lot of these tools do a lot of good for a lot of people. I think a lot of these games, a lot of these, especially with the kids, I think that there's in a lot of ways they're smarter. I mean, we got 3-year-olds on the tablets and they're able to do stuff. I think a lot of stuff is healthy in terms of brain development or what have you. So, but the wisdom is finding again when to use it and when to not to use it, when to turn it on and when to turn it off. I think that is still a conversation that a lot of people are having or trying
yeah,
to find the sweet spot in terms of what's good for kids and what's not, and making sure that they have the healthy human interaction. And again, we're still
hmm
human beings at the end of the day. But it's just funny about I'm always talking about science fiction and how a lot of science fiction, if you look at it, a lot of it again separates people to a certain extent, and there's always like a larger conglomerate trying to control stuff. So you look like THX 1138, or you know those old those books we read in college, like 1984, or the Big Brother kind of thing or whatever. It's like, yeah, we'll keep the masses kind of numbed,
Hmm.
and keep people from joining to a certain extent. So I think there's still an element of that is in play, that we just have to be mindful of. But I would never say to anybody, stop playing video games, or this stuff is bad, or turn it off, get off. So I'm not that kind of guy. But I think a responsible person or a mature person knows how to use tools and things that are in proper ways. And I think that's something, because you have a lot of people who just abstain from stuff, but just being absent of something doesn't necessarily make you knowledgeable or wise in something. You got to know how to use some things in order to really put things to use.
And that's where we
Exactly.
But
go back
guys,
to everything we were saying. And like, you can play games and have a good time. I'm sure, like my friend King and CQ, like they are very successful what they do. They're IT like yourself. They're both project managers for the VA, and they game. Nothing wrong with that, and they're great guys. Hashim, again, he's a great guy. He's old as shit, but he can game. And like it doesn't mean like obviously you don't like gaming. That's fine. It doesn't for everybody. I get it. But when you have time, I don't have a lot of time to game like I used to. Like definitely the last several years has been, I game maybe once a week if I'm lucky. I still enjoy. That's my relaxed time. Me decompress, for escape reality for a minute. That's why I like gaming so much.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
you just have to put it in there.
let's hit the last two. I'm gonna shoot the last two because we're kind of winding down for tonight. We're talking about VR next, and me and you had this conversation, Hishim, before. So VR, is a augmented reality gaming has opened up a new possibility in immediate experience with VR headset and VR entertainment devices. Playing can now step into virtual world or introduce you virtual world into the real world. Okay, that's one topic. The second one was going. I'm just going to combine the next two together so we don't, sit here all the night. As much I love the conversation was going, I think your wife would be a little mad at me. Uh, uh, Spotlight or complication gaming has been growing in popularity recent years. Tournaments, computer features,
Hmm.
legend battles of Dorian 2, Fortnite, Attack of the Millions, views worldwide with top players team with teams and personal one-on-one gaming. So,
What?
who wants
Hmm.
to? Okay, let's go to VR first. Ashim, I know you're ready to open your mouth, so
Yes.
go for it, my man.
The VR. I bought one of those.
Yeah, I
Now,
remember it was my idea too.
yes, I was. Yeah, it was, and I said that was one of the best gaming system I bought. Now, have I played it a lot? Once again, don't have as much time as I want, but the VR is totally different. The graphics is out of this world. Got the wife to play a little bit, especially what's VR? I can't even tell you which one. The VR, the Oculus. That's the one I have.
The second one, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah, the second one. And you put the glasses on and you play little things like it has you sitting on top of skyscrapers. It look like up in the air. You're looking down. It's scary. It takes your mind and makes you believe that you outside, and here you walking a plank looking crazy and somebody looking at you and you inside falling. It's a crazy game. I'm a bowler. I love to bowl when I can. They got a bowling game. It actually looks real, like you're in a bowling alley.
Does it
I
feel
mean,
real too?
certain, yes, it do. It feels real. You can hook the ball, you can straight ball, you can do a lot of things. So I love it. But once again, don't get the chance to play as much as I want. But when I do, I would say anybody to get one is it's good. The kids love it, they play it, and it's very good. I like it better than the PlayStation. Me, that's just my opinion because it's more simpler. Honestly, there's not too many gadgets and things like that. You just do what you got to do. So for me, that's one. But you know VR.
So So the backstory, so people understand. Me and Hishim were working. It was during COVID, I believe, right, Hishim?
Yeah, that was during
Yeah.
COVID. Yeah.
And I just got back visiting my friend in Maryland. I was just telling him, oh man, he got the Oculus. It was pretty cool, yada yada. And like, I personally want to spend the money because A, I don't have the room, and B, I don't think I will use it as much. So Hashim, 2 or 3 weeks later, he goes and buys one, and he was raving, "Oh my god, this is the coolest thing ever!" The roller coaster. I remember you and your wife about the roller coaster. Put it on like, oh! I'm like, okay. I think I
It makes
created a
it feel like
monster
it's
here.
real. It
Yep.
makes it feel like you're there. But the
Even,
only thing I
even.
tell people,
Go
you
ahead.
can't like on one, you can't have it on play it too long. It really messes you up, your eyes and
Mm.
whatever the case, like that. But it's a good device.
So here's where I want to talk about this one with that. My buddy Mike has it, and now you have it. It's a great system. Great. The guy, Facebook owns the rights to that, and that's where most of the games
Hmm.
come. Cool. I have a PS5, so I could get the VR PlayStation 2. No, I'm not spending the money because I'm not gonna play it. I'm a fat ass. If you can't realize, I'm a cook. I'm a fat ass. And I'm not saying more. I'll admit I'm a fat ass. So here's why I call myself a fat ass. I like sitting back when I play, relaxing. This is why I hated a goddamn fucking Wii so bad. And the Wii U, I'm not jumping like woo 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 woo. I'm not. Do I look like a goddamn hairy freaking cheerleader? No. I'm a
I love
warrior,
the
not a
Wii.
guy. Fuck off, first of all. I'm a cheerleader. I'm not. I mean, not cheerleader. I'm a goddamn Spartan here. Goddamn ashamed. So my point is trying to get. I never like those games. Once in a while, it's fine. If you have like a group of us, yeah, we can take turns. I played it at like it was a Star Wars game I played with my buddy CQ. Was cutting off. Can't remember what it was. So, uh, Super. The one I did like on it was Saber Beats. That is a
Mm.
fun game. But how much you play for your Oculus again? You remember?
Uh, what 250, 299, something like that.
Let's say 300
It
for argument's
was.
sake. Let's say 300
Yeah,
for argument. So 300 if you want to get the battery packs, all this stuff, yeah, whatever, right? Is it worth it for 1 or 2 games?
I would say
You really think so?
I do. For
Wow.
the game, so for the games I play, I do, but I just don't have the time. I don't
Well,
have the time to jump
okay.
on it like I want. So you're
I
talking
would
to the
spend
wrong person with that
300.
one.
There, I'm going to disagree with you. I'll pay 300 on something else, maybe a new gear or something for my car or
Oh, well, if you talk, no, no, hold on. Now, if you're saying either or for something that's more important, no, I
okay.
wouldn't get it. Now, if you can do something else, you have extra, you can do it, then so be it. But if you're talking about a bill or a gaming system, come on, that's
Well,
no nonsense.
well, Hashim, next time, if you want to donate to Grooming Reviews 101, the VR2 PlayStation thing, I'll be more than happy to take it out of your fucking hands. I don't mind. I'm okay with it. We can I do a whole stream on it. But the one I think is also retarded a little bit, and if whoever puts the money on it, please do me a favor and jump off the first building you see. Not literally, not literally. The Apple one, Apple Virtual or something. I can't remember what it's called. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's it's almost it's pretty much the same thing as an iPhone or if it's just double click, but we're top of an hour. So, what did you guys think for episode 3 so far? How we doing?
No, it was great, and I do need to jump off.
Yep.
And take care of some things for tomorrow. But no, this was definitely great.
Before you go,
Certainly going back in time and talking about the classic stuff. I mean, yeah, that was fun going back. But I think we also raised some, for current day, some issues that we just need to be mindful of.
All right, 3 things before you go, really fast. 1, next week we're talking about Star Wars versus Star Trek. Game on. We're gonna have a good one. Second thing. Guys, remember, tomorrow night, 9:30 at BMU channel, Black Men Unfiltered Network. Me and Paul are on the Help me out here, Paul. My brain just still go shit on
Great
me.
area.
Thank you. Great area.
You should
Episode
know
2.
all about that since you got gray all over. So
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
you should know.
Uh-oh.
shots fired. I get it. I get it. Don't worry. I get you. Don't get it. But we'll be on tomorrow for 9:30. We're talking about marriage. Is it episode correct?
Yes.
We're gonna be
Yes.
marriage. Except that, final thoughts. Paul, you can go first because I know you want to get out of here.
Nah, just again, these are the gaming and whatnot. It's just a great. I think it's been great for a lot of people.
Help me out.
It's certainly a lot of fun to be enjoyed, but definitely, like anything else, use with caution. Still be about your purpose, be about your grind, take care of what you need to take care of, and keep your, everyone needs pastime. That's important, but always keep the main thing the main thing. And with that, I think you can have a very balanced life. Well, I think a lot of things are open to you. But if you get too caught on one thing, then you limit the sort of things you should have in life. So that's all. That's it.
Nice. Hashim, you're up.
Yeah, I enjoyed this segment. This one was a good one going down memory lane, talking about a lot of them old gaming systems and going to the arcade. And I remember going to the mall.
Yeah.
That's the thing, going to the mall. I was
Same
in
here, my
Brooklyn.
man.
They used to call it Albee Square Mall on Fulton Street. That's where we used to run. And they had the arcade downstairs in the bottom floor. And that's where you used to waste all the quarters, all your change that you had, or lunch money, or whatever the case it was. So it was nice going back. But that's all I have to say about it. Make me want to go play some games now, but I ain't gonna do it.
Yeah, I need to start my MAME up again, and just because I had maybe about 30, 40 classic arcade games in there.
You
And,
know, it makes you want to play some Space Invaders or something like that.
absolutely.
Asteroids, Dig Dug, those type
You know
of
what?
games.
This curiosity part really fast. You're not too far from me, are you?
Who?
About 40 minutes from 40, 45.
I might have.
You
I
down,
might.
you're not Phillips. You down in Phillipsburg. I'm in Somerset. I'm 287 exit.
I'm in
287
Strasbourg.
exit.
I'm actually in
9.
Strasbourg.
Right. So 287 to 78 West, and I'd run.
Mm.
Hey, I think we should have a little get-together show, Paul, about the PlayStation 5 power. How maybe we can break him into a little bit. What do you think, Nashim?
We could try.
All right, guys, that's the top of
just
an
what I
hour.
mean. Yeah.
Top of an hour. I want to thank everybody who came out, supported. I thank you, the people in the chat. Thank you, people on Facebook. Remember, if you're watching on rerun, please hit the like, share, and subscribe. Except that, I'll see you guys next week. We'll be talking about Star Wars versus Star Trek. Except that, stay fresh and see you next time.